It's the Fellowship of the Geeks Show, brought to you through the support of the following: Awesome Comics at GalaxyColledDallas.com, SciFiFX.com, and Voodoo Gingerbread Graphics. Music courtesy of FreePlayMusic.com. You can contact the Fellowship at email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. And now, on with the show! Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the August 20th, 2013 Fellowship of the Geeks broadcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me via Google Hangout is Mike Marlowe.
Hi, guys.
Oh, crap. And Les Webster.
Good evening. How can I top that? But
Good night, everybody. See you next week.
tip your waiters.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good, thanks.
Groovy. Awesome. Hope everybody out there is having a good week so far. Is there anything we want to kind of go over first before we start up on tonight's topics? Or topic in game?
Nothing here.
Gosh, no.
Okay.
We're just champing at the bit to get into the topic.
Okay.
What's the topic again?
Topic. We need no topic.
I was kidding. I know what the topic is.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get into it then.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun dun dun! This year marks the 25th anniversary of the release of The Killing Joke. It was a prestige format graphic novel, not really a novel, but prestige format book. It was done by Alan Moore, written by Alan Moore, and drawn by Brian Bolland, involving Batman and Joker. The reason why I brought it up, not only because it's the 25th anniversary, but recently on a podcast, a Kevin Smith podcast, Grant Morrison mentioned it was his belief that at the end of the story, Batman had killed Joker, and went through and detailed his explanation of how he think it happened and all that. That's just the latest of a couple of discussions that have come out regarding that book, and that got me thinking: is this book being overanalyzed? Now, books, novels, especially ones that have some effect, how do I want to say this, effect on popular society or popular culture or both, whatever, you tend to get analyzed and overanalyzed, and I think this may be the case here too. Another example is something that Les and I have discussed about a year or so ago, right, Les? Because when we first heard about this particular item, we were like, "What?" And we started discussing it, and it's the whole.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just trying to come up with what the word I think. The whole theory, I guess, a theory is that Joker. It was inferred that Joker raped Barbara Gordon after he shot and paralyzed her. From my research back when I first heard about this, I noticed that there had been debates about this going as far back as 2004. So let me ask you this, guys, and whoever wants to go first, let me know. Has this book been overanalyzed, and what do you think about these interpretations that some people have come up with?
Well, I'll start.
Okay. I'm glad someone will.
Good night, folks. I would say that, yeah, it's being overanalyzed. The links that you had given us for some of the information, I thought were a little out there. The theory that Barbara was raped, I don't see in any way in that story that it was inferred. My way of looking at it was Jim Gordon was given some pictures of her unclad, and of course she was in pain, and she'd been shot, so of course he's going to go crazy over that. I don't see where somebody can get an idea that she was raped. I think it's too far-fetched. Somebody had a theory, and it is a theory, nothing has been proven. And you know the difference between a theory and a theorem. So these are theories, and nothing is positive. The second one of Batman killing the Joker was a lengthy debate. In fact, a man wrote a book about this particular one-shot done by DC, and he went into depth about it. And to me, it's something that fascinated him, and I think that's great, but I think that they just took it too far in their thought process. The symbolism that he was giving it in that small 5-minute, 6-minute video that he had done, I thought was interesting, but there was nothing in there that said this is definite. Plus, I thought he was a bit condescending at the end, saying, well, if you believe it, that's good. If you don't believe it, well, that's okay too. Well, if it never had crossed my mind that Batman had killed the Joker by a poison needle, there's always that thought process that Joker couldn't be harmed by his venom, things like that. You're twisting it so much that it detracts from the story itself. Like I said, the symbolism with the rain puddles, the rain hitting and making the small wavelets in the water, in the standing water, and that was supposed to represent the Joker's joy buzzer with his venom on it. Things like that, just, you're going a little too far. Although he was right that Alan Moore did use symbolism similar to that in his Watchmen series. There, it made a lot of sense. It made a big difference. In this, I did not see that the rings in the water were to represent the buzzer. It didn't pass my mind. So, although he brought up some interesting things, I just can't go with the same process that he was thinking. That's about what I've got.
Let me ask you this then. Since you brought it up, a lot of people know that Alan Moore used a lot of symbolism in Watchmen. Do you think people are trying to read too much in a Killing Joke, thinking he did the same thing with that? That he was trying to do the same? Because he also mentioned a whole thing about the use of hands.
Yes.
That there was a lot of panels of just the hands. And I will have to, and I'll, for those who are watching this, I will post a link to the YouTube video of him explaining the whole thing. I will have to correct him on one thing because he was talking about the one panel where after Joker he had hit Batman over the head with the 2x4, and then he says the whole thing about Batman looking at his hand after he was doing that. I'm like, no, that's not what he's doing. He's readjusting the cowl because he just got the crap hit out of him in the head. So he's kind of adjusting everything to make sure it's on so he can see. That's what I've always got from that panel. Not that he's
Maybe he was
looking
counting
at,
fingers.
yeah, Thursday.
He knows he had more than
I
four
think you're.
there.
I'm sorry.
Go
He
ahead,
knew
Mike.
if he had more than 4 fingers up there, he was in trouble.
There you go.
He's looking at a concussion.
Thomas, I have to say, yeah, that's possible about analyzing Moore's process because I think the analyzation for Killing Joke, which came out before Watchmen, was not under the deep scrutiny until Watchmen did appear. When Watchmen appeared, everybody started looking into it and looking at the symbolism. Then they went back and found similar items in The Killing Joke, or they saw the similar items in The Watchmen and went back to Killing Joke and said, okay, now we're going to explode this one again.
Okay. Mikey. Uh-oh.
All right. I hesitate to analyze the term overanalyze just because it seems like the easy way out with something like this. But the deal is, I think, that the reason it has been analyzed as much as it has is because it had such an emotional impact. I mean, people really loved that book. I mean, there are people that hate it too, I'm sure, but it was really, it has, it's one of those books you have to read if you're going to read comics at all. It's one of those. This is another overused word. It's one of those classics, and so people are going to want to. I mean, number one, people are going to want to talk about the books they love, so it's going to get analyzed that way. It's also going to get analyzed by people who want to recreate that love in their work. So they're going to study it in order to figure out how to capture that magic. Um, I mean, and as with anything, it is possible to go too far. It is possible to nitpick details and read into things and infer all kinds of crazy stuff coming out of left field. Um, Trying to, I mean, something is shaped vaguely like this item. Well, okay, to paraphrase and butcher Sigmund Freud, sometimes a puddle is just a puddle. You know, it doesn't always have to mean something. It's just an artistic choice sometimes. And honestly, to complicate things even more, sometimes an artistic choice is made because it's ambiguous and because it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And
True.
it's if you've got a good enough artist who cares enough about what he's doing, it's going to happen. I mean, they're going to make a choice somewhere along the line that they're going to people are going to see it differently than they saw it, than the artist saw it, and that's part of what makes it interesting is that everything is reinterpreted every time anybody sees it. If you know anything about art theory, this is nothing new. I'm not going to go into all of the I don't think I'm going to go into all the details of what people have supposedly figured out about it because ultimately it's meaningless. It's art. I mean, it's a really good story. It's really well drawn. I mean, I don't want to say it's just a comic book, but it's because it's an iconic comic book. It's more than just a comic book, but it's just a comic book because it has evoked that emotional response in so many people. And I mean, so I mean, overanalyze maybe, but so what? And we kind of just have to let people interpret it the way they want to interpret it, and if they want to share that, fine. If you want to read that kind of stuff, go for it. But let's not get all offended or bent out of shape about it or anything, because that's no fun. We're in this to have fun. That's why we're here. And I mean, on top of that, I think people are kind of still on. I think there's a little bit of a bandwagon for picking on Alan Moore because he's made some, let's be polite and say, questionable choices as far as in a social sense. He's kind of a hermit. He doesn't really deal well with people. He particularly doesn't seem to like the media all that well. So it's kind of, I mean, that kind of makes people look at his work even more closely because they know they're not going to get a straight answer out of him if they just point blank ask. So that's going to make people a little edgy too about his work, regardless of when he did it. So, I mean, it's, and it being the 25th anniversary makes it fun to bring it up and talk about it. But I don't necessarily read any more into it than that.
Well, let me ask you, do you think that artists or writers do their work to be analyzed? Did Melville write Moby Dick to be analyzed?
No, but you can bet your ass James Joyce wrote Ulysses to be analyzed. I don't think they always do, but I think in some cases, yeah, they do. Is that pretentious? Well, yeah, of course it is. But it's also a way for the artist to challenge himself or herself, in a sense. I mean, I don't know that I don't know about Melville and Moby Dick, but I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're in a position where you've been doing this for a while and maybe you're starting to feel like you're getting bored with it, why wouldn't you try to challenge yourself in some way? Why wouldn't you throw in a detail that might be a little off or might be interpreted in a couple of different ways, try to make things more interesting?
Okay. Kind of hard to follow that.
Well, I think that reading one of the articles, I think they were right that they were letting the reader make his own mind up whether or not Batman killed the Joker or if Barbara Gordon was raped, and leave it to the mind. I don't see where it's written in stone that this is exactly what we want. We want you to know that Joker was killed, Barbara was raped. That just doesn't make sense to me. I think leaving it in ambiguity was the smart thing to do. I think we're all in conjunction we all answer in conjunction to that. I think it's all open to us in that manner. You interpret it the way you want. Somebody's come in and interpreted it to name those two items the way he thinks, and that's his theory.
Right, and if they can back it up, then great. And if not, then whatever. But they're just talking, and that's fine too. I mean, the whole thing is the discussion itself. That's what makes it fun for most of us. That's why we're here, sitting here right now tonight talking about stuff, because it's fun for us to discuss it. We enjoy that, and that's cool.
Yes.
And other people get a little more scientific about it or a little more theoretical about it, and that's cool too. And that gives us more stuff to talk about. So hey, it's all good.
To finalize it, the only thing you can do is get Bolland or Moore to sit down and say, yes, this is what we wanted. This is what we believe it to be, and let it go.
Nobody's at this point. Nobody's going to believe Alan Moore if he says something like that anyway, because he's done some kind of crackpotty type things lately. He's been a little weird in his public persona, and So I mean, nobody's going to necessarily. I mean, him doing that would look like he's just saying, yeah, yeah, shut up, leave me alone. Just tell them something, just to get them out of his hair, and that's So I mean, it's not a problem that ever gets solved, which is why we just kind of have to make the discussion fun.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't really have anything to add because y'all guys pretty much said more or less what I was going to say. So let's just move on then. No, unless there's something else you want to add on.
No.
Okay. Cool. That was real good. It's game time.
Whee!
And this week it is fill in the blank. Who wants to take this one first?
I'm going to let Mike step up to this one.
Okay. Okay, cool. Alrighty.
Here comes
Mike?
the best, Mike.
Mikey, Marvel had released their solicits for November's books, and from gathering from that, it sounds like they are ending the Ultimate line. So, the Ultimate line of comics. So, Marvel possibly ending their Ultimate line of comics is blank.
Okay. This
Okay.
is a fun one. Mainly because I don't really pay that much attention to Marvel or DC. So I know not much about the Ultimate line. The impression that I've gotten, and honestly that's just from asking you, Tom, is that the Ultimate line, it is at least possibly believed that the Ultimate line was meant to sort of vet some characters and make some changes and see what they could kind of get away with. Essentially just letting some people play with characters without worrying about continuity, to see basically if some of those stories would stand on their own. And, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, especially when you're getting ready to start releasing massive, high-budget blockbuster movies, and you want to play around and see if people will accept the idea that these characters are maybe not exactly the same as they've been for 30, 40, 50, 90 years. And I can see where they're in a position where they're pretty comfortable with Marvel, that is. I could see where they're getting comfortable with the idea that they can get away with essentially handing one of their iconic characters over to a professional screenwriter and have them crank out something that people will spend a bunch of money to go see in a movie theater. So, I mean, if that's the case, then the Ultimates line has run its course, and it's probably time for it to go away. And it's also my understanding, and by all means correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the Ultimates line never really sold all that well. I mean, I'm sure there were a few titles that did fine, but generally speaking, the Ultimate titles weren't cracking the top 25 all that often. Am I wrong?
I would have to go back and check that. I know that the Ultimate Spider-Man line has a lot recently, but I think that was more because of the killing off of Peter Parker and him being replaced by Miles Morales, who will now be moved over to the main Marvel Universe after all this happens.
Right. See, and all they have to do if they want to keep anything out of this, essentially out of this universe, is do some sort of mumbo jumbo hocus pocus, and the people that were popular pop up in the regular continuity, and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
So they can kind of pick and choose what they want to take with them. Still trying to think of a word that to actually fill in the blank with. I can't think of a better one, so I'm going to go with understandable.
Okay.
Certain set of circumstances that may or may not be true because I'm making this up as I go for the most part.
That's alrighty.
But you know, I think if it was really there just to sort of see what they can get away with outside of continuity, then it makes sense to pull it now because they got the information they wanted. I mean, why would you keep an experiment going if you're a scientist when it's over? The experiment has ended. What's the point in continuing to torture the plants or whatever you're doing?
Okay. You want to go, Les?
I'll give it a shot.
Alrighty.
I'm going to say a two-word answer of not surprising. If I recall, the Ultimate line was established to give you new look on characters in the Marvel Universe, yet they started out telling the old stories in a new frame. They were giving you a new origin or retelling of an origin of a character and saying, this is how we're going to start. Was it not the Ultimates that gave you the Marvel Zombies storyline, which became huge for them for a couple of years, in fact, and spawned out of that appearance in Fantastic Four three different stories?
Don't get me to lie. I think there was more than that. But at least three. At least three. I'll say that.
Okay, but was that not the whole purpose of the Ultimates? Was to give a revamp to the characters?
It was, from what I understood, it was a reimagining and try to make things a little bit more accessible to newer readers, because at the time you're talking about those characters already being around for 30 years or so. So that's a lot of continuity. So they decided, let's do this. And then, of course, they've been around for 20 years or so. So I'll just go ahead and do mine. I had not surprising as well. The thing is, you'll never have me convinced that they also decided to use this to, like Mike said, to make the characters in some of the storylines a little bit more feasible to where it could be possibly adapted into a movie format or TV show format or something like that. That has happened, and the thing is a lot of the elements of the Ultimate line have been creeping over into the mainstream universe for years. The costume changes. The costumes all of a sudden have gone from very superhero to a lot more functional, real world, that type of thing. The advent of coming up with, for those who've not read the books and all that, there was a series called The Ultimates, which was their Avengers, and they were basically a part of Shield, which was run by a black Nick Fury. Now, over a couple of years, within the last year or two, all of a sudden they have brought into the mainstream universe a black Nick Fury, who is the son of the Nick Fury that I know we all know. He's been around since the '60s and maybe even longer. Within the last year, they have introduced about the same time they did that. They did Phil Coulson, who's never been anywhere. I mean, he wasn't even in the Ultimate lines, but he's such a popular character in the movies that they've moved him into the comic book universe now. So, yeah, it's the Ultimate line. Could they keep on going with it? They probably could, but I guess they don't feel that it's needed, and it probably isn't needed. The only thing to do is to bring Miles Morales over into the mainstream universe, because he's been really popular since they brought him on. So it's just a matter of throwing him in to the main universe, get rid of all that, and then we can move on. That seems to be what the whole thing was. It's just all the cool, neat, and interesting stuff was from the Ultimate Universe. Is now they've been slowly moving it and changing the mainstream universe to that, and then it's not needed anymore.
Who are the members of the Ultimates? Do you recall?
The current group, I have no idea.
Okay.
The original group is the group that we saw in the Avengers movie.
Okay.
With the exception of they also had Ant-Man and Wasp.
Okay. Okay. Because if they're just shutting down this universe, then they're going to have to go back in. Everybody's going to have to go back into continuity. They're going to have to try to remember days of the past.
Well, it's a parallel universe, so there's not really going to be any kind of,
But if they're moving from the Ultimate Universe over to the Marvel Universe, then they've got to contend with everything in the Marvel, right?
Well, Miles is the only one that we know that's moving over to the mainstream universe, so it's only one character. And I'm sure they'll do something about that. Okay. That may be the sequel to Spider-Man, the miniseries that came out last year, which when that was first announced, I'll go ahead and bring this up. It got a lot of people upset because when they originally started up the Ultimate Universe, apparently Joe Quesada, who was editor-in-chief at the time, had been asked, or somehow the subject had been brought up about crossovers between the two universes. And Quesada's response was, if we do that, then we're jumping the shark. Well, the shark was officially jumped. Well, it was officially, I guess it was jumped with the whole Marvel Zombies thing, because I forgot about that. But it was definitely jumped with the Spider-Man miniseries that came out last year, because you had the Peter Parker of the main universe meeting Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe, which was Miles Morales. Mm-hmm. And then they did their thing. So, alrighty. Next topic. And I know this is both in your wheelhouses, so I'm sure you're going to love this. So, Les, I would like to see Blank as part of Dynamite's Pulp line. We reported last week that there will be a new miniseries coming out in November called Noir that's going to feature Miss Fury and Black Sparrow, who is the villain of the Shadow, and the Shadow will appear in the first issue. But, we just completed the Masks miniseries. We're in the process of the Shadow Green Hornet miniseries, the team up, and of course you got the individual books, Shadow, Green Hornet, Miss Fury, Black Bat, Spider. Who else am I missing? That's quite a few right there.
Yeah.
So
Zorro.
so they're really working on a pulp line, although they don't really call it that. So, Les, who would you like to see them try to bring in if they can?
I would like to see the pulp hero, the Avenger. Um, Another character would be Doc Savage, but Doc Savage has been done by so many different people, and I'm just saying that if they have license to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If they get the license to do the character, who would you want? Or
I would like to see the Avenger, which was a little-known character back in the Depression area. It was a creation of, I believe it was Kenneth Robinson also, who created Doc Savage. And the Avenger and Justice Inc. were pretty popular at that time. So if they have a chance, I would like to see the Avenger.
yep, okay, Mikey.
I'm going to cheat. My answer for this is going to actually be the Spider for two reasons. Number one, because as much as I have enjoyed their Spider book, they did some really dramatic changes to him, and I mean, to an extent, he really kind of wasn't the character from the Pulp series. He was dramatically changed. They moved it to modern times, and they shuffled around some of the supporting characters, and it was different enough that I mean I wasn't that familiar with them before, but I still would be. I would like to have seen it be a little more true to what it was before. I think just because it would have been interesting. Um, and I say that as a fan of the series now. And the other reason is because there have been rumblings that their run of the Spider will be ending at issue 18. And I don't want that to happen. I want them to keep them. I want them to bring them back.
Yeah.
So I want Spider to be the new one.
I could see them bringing the Spider back under a title in that time frame with the Shadow and such, and name it "Beware the Spider" or something of that nature. Let's start that up again and put him. And I agree with you. Put him back in the time frame where he was created.
Right, and where all the others are.
Right. Then it's all relevant, and it's so easy to interplay with each other that way.
Although I say that, and I remember reading the first Miss Fury, and they were fiddling with time zones on that one too. It was set in two different times.
She's jumping. She's jumping in time.
Right, and one of them was modern day.
Yeah.
And it was a little. I'll admit. I'll go out on a limb and admit that it was a little off-putting for me. I didn't like it because of that. Nothing against the character. It was interesting, but I didn't like the jumping around in time.
Yes, we know about you and time travel.
There's that.
Well, what they could do is kind of what they're doing with the Shadow. I mean, they've got the classic series going on now, but they've already announced that, like, I think it's in October, they're going to do a new series called The Shadow Now, which is the Shadow in modern day times. Now, it's not going to be Lamont Cranston, but it'll be someone else. So, yeah, they could do Spider, the current book as it is now, and then do the classic take with a new series. I could definitely see them do that.
Yeah, it would be weird going the other direction though, because they'd just have to retcon a bit, I suppose, and claim that what's his face? Crap, now I can't remember his name. whatever, to claim that because it was the same guy.
That's
It
true.
was
That's
the
true.
same character name anyway. I can't remember. It's not like I don't read this book every month. Jeez. But
Well, you read a lot of stuff. So do I.
Wentworth.
So.
Wentworth.
Yep.
It was they like I said, they just moved all the characters into a modern day situation and tweaked them a little bit.
Yeah.
It would be weird to take that back. So they would have to retcon and somehow say that Richard had inherited the thing or stolen the idea somehow.
Yeah. Well,
So
I try to make it. I try to make everybody happy. So, you know.
Icebergs are viable, you know.
Anyway.
Anyway.
If they do that with the Spider, if they've got the two titles going, as long as they don't introduce something in the Spider, and then 3 months later introduce it in the Spider then to show you what happened. No, you need to show it then first, then in the Spider. That way people will know what happened. Does that make sense to you? Obviously not.
Yes, but there are ways to do it. I mean, what you have to do is you have to pawn it off as if you're going to start it off in the Now Spider, you have to pawn it off as if it was already there. And then you can shoot back to the then Spider and say, well, this
and
is
find out how it happened or how he found it.
Yeah. This is where it started.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't be pulling new stuff out and then having it pop back 60 years in time, because that's just goofy. You have to do it right.
Yes.
What about Data's head?
Yeah.
If you remember, DC did that with The Shadow. They did the 4-issue series with Chaykin, and then they started a series, and all of a sudden it was modern. And I went, no, this is not right. You should keep everything back then. So I have a frame of reference, and 2, I'm not going to just sit there and go, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Because if it wasn't, if it wasn't introduced originally, then I wouldn't know about it now, type situation.
Well, if they're not planning
DC did that with Doc Savage, too.
Yeah, but if they're not planning on keeping the characters around, then they really don't have any reason to care about continuity. And that's the only reason you would do that, is if you want to maintain continuity. But if you're only going to do a couple of miniseries just to sort of to use a license you actually paid money for, try to recoup your money, and then you're going to let it go fall by the wayside and go back on the shelf until your contract comes up again, you have to do something with it so that it doesn't go away, so you don't lose the rights, like they do with movies all the time these days. Then you don't care, and you're just going to do little one-shots just kind of to placate the masses, sort of toy with the interests of the 17 people who still care about the character, and move on.
Okay.
Which actually, I do intend it to be as negative as I'm making it sound. I mean, I think it's a crappy way to deal with the character that they could actually do something really cool with. But I can understand them doing it too.
Okay.
Alrighty. My turn. It's really hard to pick one character. I mean, Les had already mentioned Doc Savage. Yeah, I like to see that. I've really never read any Mandrake the Magician. That might be interesting. The Phantom. I mean, I know some of these characters are being used by Moonstone. I don't know how often they use the characters or so. Rima. You know, I saw. DC did the whole first wave how long ago was that, Les? About 3 years ago.
Yeah, I believe so.
You know, they were trying to do their own noir universe and even include the Spirit and the Blackhawks, and we saw how well that worked out. I would like to see Remo. Um, there's a couple other things I think because when I was thinking about this, I said they need to do this. Two projects, and if they're listening, all I want is just a little box saying credit by. I'm not wanting any money or anything. Just say or special thanks to for the idea.
Jeez.
Well, how about Project Superpowers and the Masks together? The golden age superheroes and the pulp characters together. Just kind of a big ass superhero group miniseries. They got the rights, well, especially since Project Superpowers were basically public domain characters anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a cool idea. The other thing is a crossover with IDW and the Rocketeer, like a Shadow Rocketeer or something like that.
And IDW is doing a Rocketeer and the Spirit crossover right now.
Yeah. See, I would love
I
that.
actually really liked the first issue of that.
Yeah, it was good.
It was really well done.
It was yeah.
The art was really cool because it was really reminiscent of the old comic style, which I thought was a nice touch.
I thought it was great. Yep, exactly. But yeah, that also got me an idea too, because or trying to do something with DC with the Spirit. I'm not all three of them together because I don't see that happening, but I could definitely see them trying to cross do a little crossover, and I think it would be great. Wouldn't it be cool to see like the Shadow and the Spirit and Green Hornet work together, or I think it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, to me, especially the Spirit.
Yep. So there's my selection. So alrighty. Well, that's fill in the blank for this week.
Your list of selections. Holy cow.
Dope. Well, do we have anything else we want to kind of mention before we start trying to wrap things up this week?
No, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I'll throw it out there.
Okay.
Since we do actually cover games on the website, we should probably mention Gen Con, which just happened.
Yep, that just happened.
And if my Twitter feed is anything to has any bearing on the truth whatsoever, much fun was had by all.
Cool. Well, I know. Wizards of the Coast had some stuff preview at there, and it sounds like it went over real well. So
Yeah, they seem to be pretty happy with it. They had a board game I know they were pretty keen on that they were releasing there, and they're also still neck deep in the whole D&D Next concept thing, which most of the people I deal with on Twitter are, I think they're kind of mixed about D&D Next. I think a lot of them still kind of have a bad taste in their mouth over the fourth edition. I think that really, I think they broke some hearts with fourth ed, and I think I'm not sure I agree with the horrendous emotional response to that I'm kind of having. So I think there are a lot of people hoping that D&D Next is going to be a little more of a return to traditional D&D.
Yeah.
I have not seen the stuff, so I don't really know one way or the other if that's going to happen. But there are a lot of people playtesting it. And
Yeah. Well,
hoping
we might be able to find out.
yeah, maybe. Of course, there were some awards handed out because big shows like that. I mean, Gen Con is one of 2 or 3 huge nationwide gaming conventions for the year. And I also find the contrast interesting between to compare Gen Con and San Diego Comic Con, because San Diego Comic Con is just this huge. You hear all kinds. There's just news flying. There's a major news story in the comics world every 5 minutes at San Diego. But Gen Con really.
Yes, I know that.
We all do. But Gen Con is kind of the opposite. It's really just about the games and about a bunch of people getting together in Indianapolis and playing the games and having a blast, and people who deal with each other through through social media and through other communication channels and through professional channels, actually getting to meet face to face for a change. And it's kind of cool to read about all the stuff. And I mean, it was funny because there were times when my Twitter feed was just completely blown up by, honestly, about 40 people, maybe not even that many, just bouncing stuff back and forth and having a blast and meeting up. And I'm hearing about restaurants and about coffee shops in Indianapolis, and people just having a blast, playing games, lots of stuff about games. I cannot count the number of pictures of die rolls I got to see on my Twitter feed over a 4-day span. It was pretty crazy.
See what you're missing out, Les? We need to get you on Twitter.
Absolutely. Chicken.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just throwing it out there. It needed to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Gen Con was a blast. We didn't get to send our cub reporter to Gen Con, but we
Who knows? Maybe next year.
got to hear all kinds of fun stories.
Yep.
Through social media.
Cool.
Keeping ourselves connected. That's what it's all about.
Well, I hate to bring things down, but I think we need to mention this. The story broke yesterday of the passing of Lee Thompson Young, who people in the geek world probably remember him. He first burst out into the TV series The Famous Jet Jackson. He was also Cyborg on Smallville a few years ago, and he was currently part of the cast for TNT's show Rizzoli and Isles. He passed away yesterday. Apparently, he took his life, and he was only 29 years old. It's really sad to have heard about this. Such a young life. All I can say is I hope he has peace now. So you hear stories about this, and you're like, well, he was moderately, he was successful. Some people knew his name and all that. He was young. Why would that happen? We don't know. We may never know. It's just sad and unfortunate. So rest in peace.
And I hate to add to something like that, but we also heard today of the passing of Elmore Leonard.
Yeah.
Who, and again with the Twitter blowing up, hearing lots of thoughts and stories about him.
Yeah.
Great mystery writer.
Yep, that's sad too. I do want to mention our friend Taffeta Darling. She has her own show now. She is hosting her own show after appearing everywhere on everybody else's show or co-hosting or whatever. She's finally the top dog on her own. It's called Dames. No, it's called Fangirls. I'm sorry, Dames of the Round Table. I always get that mixed up. I don't know why. I can't remember that. You can check it out on deepelmonair.com. The live show is on Sundays at 3 p.m. Central Time. But if you go to the website, the previous shows are there. It's been fun to watch so far. I was there for the first one, and I watched most of the one that was on this past Sunday, and it's been a blast to watch. And it sounds like it's been really successful so far. So, congrats, Taff. Way to go, girl. I'm glad it's working out for you. So, everybody, check it out.
We need to get her on our show before she's too big for us.
Yes, we need. Yeah, we need the boost.
Latch onto her coattails and ride the train.
There you go.
If I could mix some more metaphors there. Jeez.
There you go. Oh, you can do one or two more at least.
Yeah, what the heck.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm good here.
All right. We do need to mention that we are one man short. James Pickering could not be with us tonight. I hope everything's okay, James, and we'll talk to you real soon. Please check out his website, agalaxycalleddallas.com. He's on Twitter, and it's at Galaxy_Dallas. Is that right, Mikey?
Yep.
Do I remember that right? And Mikey, as you can see, his Twitter handle is Mikey Geek.
Yep.
So check him out. And as we've already mentioned a couple of times, Les does not have a Twitter account. Yet.
We're going to make him one.
I need to make him one and say it's not Les Webster.
Yeah, we're going to make him a fake Les Webster.
Yeah, good. And then just start having him post the weirdest things. Go, yep, that's Les. Les posted that.
Yep, his memories of stuff that happened in the 1920s.
That recent? So with that, we'd bid you good evening and hope you have a good rest of the week. And any kind of feedback, good, bad, questions, whatever, please contact us at email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and we will definitely check it out and get back with you.
Facebook, Google Plus, Twitter.
That's right. Yeah, we're everywhere, just about, except for the Instagram and that stuff. We're not there yet.
No, we don't really do pictures much.
Yeah. So with that, we wish you a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night, guys.